Dawn arrives at the residence at exactly the hour Dawn is scheduled to arrive, which, today, as most days, happens to line up perfectly with what was already written on yesterday's itinerary. Breakfast is tested by 2 staff members before it is tested by him, a formality nobody currently employed remembers the start of, and nobody employed is in a hurry to be the one who ends it. He eats without comment. The staff study his expression for a verdict anyway, the way people study weather they can't actually change. A stack of newspapers arrives with the tea, each one carrying some version of the same story about him from yesterday, arranged so the most flattering photo is always the one on top, though nobody could say who arranges it that way, only that it is always that way. On the way out of the residence, he passes beneath a large formal portrait in the main hallway, the way he does every morning, and the way everyone else in the building also does every morning, though only one of those 2 facts gets mentioned out loud. An aide reads the day's schedule aloud from a leather folder. He already knows the schedule. He lets the aide finish anyway, because interrupting would mean admitting he'd looked at it twice. The wardrobe staff hold up 2 functionally identical gray suits. He points at one. The choice is logged in a notebook as though a decision of some weight had just been made, which, procedurally speaking, it had. The motorcade departs for the first stop of the day, a factory, where the workers were assembled 40 minutes ago and instructed, gently, to look surprised. He steps out of the car, and the applause starts at that exact instant, from every direction at once, and nobody in the crowd could tell you afterward who started it, only that starting it late would have been noticeable. Walking the factory floor, he remarks almost to himself that a conveyor belt could stand 2 meters to the left. An aide writes this down immediately in a small notebook reserved for exactly this purpose. Directive 1, logged. The factory manager looks at the belt, then at the concrete it's bolted into, then back at the belt, already mentally scheduling a very long weekend. He moves on to the next machine, entirely unaware of the weekend he has just created, or entirely aware and simply not interested, which, from the outside, looks identical. He rests a hand on a control panel for a moment and nods once. The aide, not wanting to risk it, writes the nod down too. Directive 2, logged. Technically, for nothing. A worker near the back quietly asks a colleague whether standing too close counts. Neither of them is willing to find out by experiment. 2 photographers trail a fixed 6 paces behind at all times, working from a small laminated card of pre-approved angles, none of which happen to include the factory's less flattering fluorescent lighting. The motorcade regroups at the station, where an armored train is waiting, because flying is a decision he does not personally make, on principle, and the principle has never once been revisited. Inside, the dining car serves considerably more courses than the length of the journey could reasonably justify, on the theory that a short trip is no excuse for a short meal. A cabinet near the rear holds an impressive private collection of imported spirits, each bottle tracked in a small ledger that gets updated to the milliliter after every single glass. He raises a toast to no occasion in particular. The room toasts back with the exact same enthusiasm it would use for an actual occasion, because there is no version of this dinner where the enthusiasm is optional. Midway through the meal, an aide reads him a foreign newspaper's coverage of yesterday's visit. He asks to hear it a second time, not because he missed anything, but because a good sentence, in his experience, only gets better on the repeat. At every stop along the route, staff draw the train's curtains closed exactly 1 minute before arrival and open them exactly 1 minute after departure, a window of privacy so precisely observed that nobody remembers anymore whether it was ever actually written down as a rule. By afternoon, the train has delivered him to a private basketball court, where a retired foreign player, invited as a guest of honor, sits courtside, not entirely sure whether he's allowed to cheer for the other team. He takes a shot from just inside the arc. It goes in. The room reacts with the specific, disproportionate relief of people who had already decided, individually, what would happen if it hadn't. Between games, he mentions that the paint on the court looks a little dull in this light. Directive 3, logged. Repainting begins that same evening, once he has left the building and can no longer see the color being chosen for him. A plate of imported cheese is brought out on its own small table, presented with the kind of ceremony usually reserved for objects that do something other than sit on a cracker. He tries a piece, says nothing definitive, and the entire kitchen staff spends the rest of the afternoon quietly interpreting that silence as an opinion. Evening brings a state banquet, a long table, assigned seating down to the inch, and a rotation of toasts that everyone at the table has secretly timed in advance, because being the one to toast after him by accident is not a mistake anyone wants to make twice. He offers the final toast himself, at precisely the moment the room has been trained to expect it, which removes any possibility of a second one following it. A small orchestra in the corner adjusts its tempo mid-song after he nods along slightly off the beat, matching him rather than the score, so that for the rest of the piece it is technically the room and not the music keeping time. Somewhere between the main course and dessert, he mentions lightly that the room could use warmer lighting. Directive 4, logged. Tomorrow's electrician now has a full day planned that, as of this morning, did not exist. Applause returns the moment he rises from the table and stops the instant he's fully upright, as though the two events were connected by a wire nobody can see. Late at night, back at the residence, Central Television plays the day's broadcast, the factory, the train, the basketball court, the banquet, narrated in a warm, formal third person about a series of events he was, technically, standing inside of at the time. He watches himself watch the factory workers from that morning, alone now, on a screen, wearing the same unreadable expression the workers spent all morning trying to read. A late note arrives about tomorrow's broadcast running order, Directive 5, logged, for a broadcast that, strictly speaking, already finished airing 3 hours ago. Down the hall, a clerk quietly recopies the day's notebook of directives into a clean binder before turning in. 6 entries by the official count, though privately, counting nods, the clerk's own tally comes closer to 11, a discrepancy that will not be raised with anyone, tonight or ever. Under the same hallway portrait he passed this morning, a night guard checks that the newspapers for tomorrow have already been printed, the flattering photo already selected, hours before the day it describes has technically happened. The last light in the residence to go off is not his. It's the desk lamp over the clean binder, still open, still waiting for tomorrow's first remark to become tomorrow's first instruction, whether or not anyone in the room realizes one has been given.